Sandra, welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, covering love, life, confidence, dating, relationships, and so much more. So hit the subscribe button and the bell icon right now. So tonight I've got a very special episode for you, which is all about questions asked about asexuality from sexuals to me who are new to asexuality. So let's get stuck into this one. So yesterday I went to a meetup through meetup.com, 20s and 30s meetup, and I've been to those events before in the past, but it's not since about October last year. That's 2023. We're now in March 2024 when I'm recording this. So it's been quite a while since I've been to one of those meetups, and there's quite a lot of new faces there. And when they started asking me about what I do, there's a couple of people that don't really bat much of an eyelid when I mention asexuality, and I just explain what it is, and they don't really say much about it. But then there's the other people who are sexuals who do ask me more questions about it, and it's like they got quite excited about it, some of them, like they're meeting an asexual for the very first time in their life, a real life asexual, and they're so excited to meet a real life in-person asexual rather than just hearing the word asexual. So if you are new to asexuality yourself, welcome here to this channel. And asexuality is a sexual orientation that's based on the lack of sexual attraction. So for me personally, I'm a romantic asexual, a heteromantic asexual, and I only get attracted to guys romantically and aesthetically, just not sexually. So that means I don't get the need, urge, and want for partnered sexual intercourse. I just don't have those feelings that a lot of the majority of the world population have. And I was explaining this to about 3 people yesterday at the meetup, although I'm a very loud speaker, so there's probably a number of other people at the meetup who could hear me at the same time. And probably there's a lot of people in the pub we're in that was probably listening in that got to hear what I have to say about asexuality as well, because I don't speak quietly and I'm very loud and proud to be asexual. The more people that know about asexuality, the better. So it was good to educate people yesterday, and I kind of had questions sort of hurled at me through interest and stuff like that. And I thought it was really nice that people take an interest. So one of the first people I seriously spoke to about this, who was interested in know more, and I was interested about what he does for a living. He works for the NHS. Now I've worked for the NHS Partnership Trust as well, like he is currently doing. And I used to help people with their mental ill health through blogging. For example, I did a blogging as an aid to recovery for mental ill health. That was one of my most popular courses, and I create that from scratch. And I was talking to this guy about that and the results I got and people's lives being changed. And then he said in his job, he is currently doing a training on sexual safety. And I said to him, I should be included in that then, because, I help asexuals. I'm like an expert in asexuality. I've been helping asexuals now since 2015. And I discovered I'm asexual in 2014. And so it's really important that that's covered. And I was asking him about, is asexuality covered? And he said, oh, we only mentioned it briefly. So I did say that I should be part of that, how, talking about asexuality. And he did take me my card and said about meeting up sometime. And I said, yeah, but he hasn't contacted me yet. So maybe he will, maybe he won't, but I'm okay either way. I get the feeling it's his project and maybe he doesn't want to dive too deep into asexuality. But I think the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, really needs to know more about asexuality, and they need it brought to their attention that the majority of people don't know about it still. But all the world needs to know about it, because only when people understand there are people that genuinely don't want, need, or like sex and don't have that urge for it, and it's not natural for them, will people be more understanding, accepting on dating sites, in schools, colleges, universities, and will doctors and therapists be more accepting so that people can actually understand themselves better, and people can stop being manipulated into thinking that sex is right for everyone and that it's natural for everyone, and if not, you get punished because of it, because you feel different and you're not the same as everyone else. Sexual safety is really a definite asexual thing, if you know what I mean, as in it's relevant to every sexuality. But with asexuality, a lot of asexuals do not want sex, right? And the whole point of asexuality is based on a lack of sexual attraction. So safety is going to be even more paramount, in the sense that it's not more important for us to be more safe than any other sexual orientation, but we're more likely to be coerced into having sex because we don't want it in the first place. And a lot of asexuals won't speak up themselves. They don't even know they're asexual, right? So sexual safety should have a bigger proportion of that geared towards talking about asexuality. Because imagine how many people at school and college and university right now are asexual and don't even realize it. Just imagine how much it would benefit society and the whole world if people knew that there's genuine people who do not want, like, or need sex, and they don't even have an interest in it at all. Because if that was the case, then hopefully we'd have a better society where people are more accepting that you don't have to have a relationship with sex to love someone. And that brings me to another point, actually. I had this guy who interrupted me when I was saying about what asexuality means to me and what it is. And he said, "Oh, so you just want a friend then?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want a friend." And that's what people get wrong. Like, just because I don't want sex in a relationship doesn't mean to say I can't have a relationship. You know, the world keeps defining people having a relationship by, oh, it's happy, sex is part of a happy, healthy, loving, caring relationship. I said, but it's not like that for people who don't actually want it in the first place. It's not healthy for someone who doesn't want sex. There's nothing healthy about it. And so you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be just defining a relationship. I don't know if I said this bit, but I was trying to get my point across that you shouldn't be defining a relationship by sex, and how much sex you have. I did make the point that, there are couples, heterosexual couples, for example, and they're not always having sex. And the time that they're not having sex, they still love each other. They're still in a relationship, just they're not having sex. So, I wasn't having that because I get really pissed off, excuse my language, when people just think I want a friendship. I see it on dating sites. I just block these people. I think if you're so ignorant, if all you think about is sex defines whether we're in a relationship or not, then you're really not understanding what it truly means to be in loving, caring, committed relationships. Sex should be one of the very last things that happens if both people want it to happen. But if someone's asexual and their sexual orientation is asexuality and they're a sex repulsed asexual, you shouldn't get in a relationship with them in the first place if you want sex and they don't, because it's not going to work. Why waste each other's time? Why? There's no friggin' point. So anyway, he interrupted and said about it just being a friendship, and I'm like, no, and explained why. And then there was this girl who introduced herself, but she was asking me questions, and I said, well, she was asking me about sex. That's right. So she was saying to me, so do you not like any type of sex then? So what can you please define sex? She was saying to me. So I had to spell it out to her. I said, I don't like sexual intercourse. I don't like anal sex, and I don't like oral sex. I'm saying this in the middle of a Wetherspoons pub in the UK. Right. And she's like, but what about other intimate stuff? I said, I don't like being touched. But I'm not interested in someone seeing my body naked because I'm nudity repulsed, actually. She's like, oh, like, how much do I have to spell out? She followed me on Instagram now, which is really nice of her. But, when I said I'm a hyper romantic and a hyper kisser, which is rare for any sexuality, let alone asexual, it's very rare for any sexuality to be a hyper romantic and hyper kisser. And I didn't think she understood that. So I explained that as a hyper kisser, for example, I've kissed someone nearly non-stop for over 4 hours. And then someone said, like, about going to the toilet that time. I said, "Well, yeah, it was nearly non-stop because I did need the toilet, but apart from that, I was kissing, so that's what I mean." And then she's like, so I said, "I don't kiss my friends." So when someone says about, "Oh, just being a friendship," I don't kiss my friends. I said, "I don't tongue kiss my friends." And someone went, and then the girl goes, "Oh, I kiss my friends. Do you want to kiss?" And she's like pressing her chest against mine, trying to kiss me. And I'm like, "No, I don't. I'm not attracted to women. I'm not interested." She goes, "Oh, I kiss all my friends, regardless of what gender they are." But that made me really, really uncomfortable, and I felt her boobs pressing into my arm, basically, and I didn't like that, to be perfectly honest with you. I was really like, I really didn't like that. It's really overstepping my boundaries, and it didn't feel comfortable. I'm not saying she's a horrible person, but I just felt really uncomfortable with that. I actually, if she'd listened, and at the beginning, I actually said that I'm only attracted to guys. I'm attracted to guys romantically and aesthetically, but not sexually. I think she just assumed because I'm a high kisser, I like to kiss everyone, but no, I did. I said I can't. I said guys, and not I can't just kiss any guy, like not every guy. So I don't think she was fully listening, but she was very excitable about asexuality and to learn more about it. But that just made me feel really uncomfortable. She probably didn't realize how uncomfortable it made me feel, to be honest. But I just don't like it. I'm not interested in snogging women and having women be like that with me. I find it really invasion of my space and not comfortable. So yeah, that was a difficult situation for me because I'm really not interested. I think I told her a couple of times and she thought it was funny, I think, but I just don't find stuff like that funny because I'm not attracted to women. So anyway, so then I spoke to the guy for a while to do the NHS, and I said about asexuality, and I said, it's not the same. There's a lot of people that misunderstand asexuality. It's not the same as abstinence. It's not the same as celibacy. And, it's not the same as trauma. He goes, "Oh, yeah, but there's quite a big link between asexuality and trauma." I said, "But asexuality isn't actually trauma. It's a lack of sexual attraction. And so then I got to talk about then I kind of went on and spoke to this other guy, and I said, like I knew from a young age, looking back, I didn't know then, but looking back, um, I know now that I was born asexual, but didn't realize it because I explained to him that I saw a counselor and that she told me I'd have to have sex in order to keep a good guy. He didn't exactly seem to think, I don't know, from his body language and the way he looked, he didn't seem surprised about that. It's like that was perfectly fine for someone to say that, if you know what I mean. Whereas I'm horrified by that. And so I explained to him that, a guy's not going to be good for me if he's wanting me to do something that I don't want to do. It's like giving a guy a license to rape me. I actually said this, so I think he was understanding more then. I said, and it was horrible, but that's how I found out. And I went home and I told him the actual truth, that I wasn't intending to go to see a counsellor. What happened was I saw a therapist like a year before, so 8 or 10 months before, and I was seeing them for like anxiety, depression at the time. And that person said, anxiety or depression, I think it was anxiety actually. And that person said, "I don't need therapy anymore because I'm answering all my own questions." So she said, "I don't need any more therapy sessions." So as far as I'm concerned, that was it. But I told him, this is a new guy I've met at the meetup who doesn't even know who the hell I am. So I told him I'm spiritual. Not a lot of people there are spiritual, I don't think, and that I'm guided by my intuition. I believe everything happens for a reason. And out of the blue, someone phoned me like 8 or 10 months later to say, "Oh, you've got a therapist now. You can see one." And I'm like, "What?" And so I didn't know what it's about, but I thought it's obviously like fate. I'm meant to go to it. And the woman seemed nice on the phone. And then that's when I went to see her. And I was absolutely horrified that she said that to me, that I have to have sex in order to keep a good guy. And then I went home in anger and frustration and Googled, "I love kissing and romance, but not sex." And then it came up with asexuality.org, which is the biggest online forum for asexuals. And I discovered there are 1,000 people like me. And I thought I was the only one, in the world, planet, and universe like this. I didn't realize there was anyone else. And it was like such an awakening, I like realization, because I think he said it must be interesting when you realize there's other people like you. And I'm like, yeah. And so, and I said, looking back, I was always asexual, but didn't realize it. When I had my first heterosexual boyfriend at 6, he wanted to do kissing and sexual exploration. I like kissing and not the sexual exploration stuff. I felt invaded. And, some people are cool with that, with at that age, exploration like that, and I just wasn't. It's horrible, and so it's obvious I was asexual, but didn't realize it. And then he was asking me a question, but he wasn't asking it in specific words as such. He was saying, oh, so it's a journey, isn't it, sexuality, and do you think people change? So he was basically trying to ask me the question that, do I think I'm going to change the more I learn about my asexuality? Do I think that people who learn about asexuality learn about it and then they just change over time to not actually being asexual? That's where he was going with the conversation. I said, well, I do know some people that don't identify as asexual anymore, but I gave him 3 examples and I explained to him the reasons why they don't identify with that anymore. One of them, I said, he doesn't when I was speaking to this guy, he didn't identify as asexual anymore, but he still didn't experience any sexual attraction. But he thought eventually he would, so he didn't want to call himself asexual anymore. But I explained that for some asexuals, they don't like being asexual. They're traumatized. They can't deal with the fact they don't experience sexual attraction, that they can't have the same relationships as everyone else, that they're not normal. There's something different about them, that they get upset that they'll never have a loving, fulfilling, happy relationship because most people want sex, and if they don't want it, and they get really upset about it, and it causes them a lot of psychological issues. The fact they are asexual and they don't want to be asexual, and it's really difficult for them. I said, so some people don't want to believe they're asexual. And that guy, I said, technically he is still asexual. When I spoke to him last, he might not be now. I said, because if he doesn't experience sexual attraction, that's what asexuality is. I said, so the fact that he doesn't identify that, he doesn't identify that anymore, but he technically is still asexual because he doesn't experience sexual attraction. That's the last time I spoke to him. That was years ago anyway. But I was giving that as an example. And then I was giving him another example. And I said, there's someone in my Asexual Perspectives book, but he doesn't identify as asexual anymore. But then I did have a question mark in my mind as to whether he was really asexual or not when I done the story with him. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that with him because it was a bit difficult with him after the book came out. But that's all I'm saying about that. And then there's another person I know who I was friends with for years, came to asexual meetups. He moved back with his parents and he no longer identifies as asexual. But I kind of feel personally, it's not coming from him, it's coming from me, that he's been brainwashed by his parents to thinking he's not asexual anymore because he finds a girl hot looking. Just because you find someone aesthetically hot does not mean to say you're not asexual. This is a person that doesn't understand what arousal is and doesn't get aroused. So it's like, you know what I mean? To my mind, it's highly unlikely that they're not asexual. But anyway, they don't identify as asexual anymore. That's fine. That's up to them. If that's their truth, that's their truth. But it's only since moving back in and living with their parents, and their parents have told them they're not asexual, are they not identify as asexual anymore? And they're no longer in my asexual groups or coming to my meetups or anything. So I wish them best, it doesn't matter to me whether asexual or not. But what it does matter is people, family members, brainwashing asexuals into believing they're not asexual. Or family members, trying to brainwash people that they're not who they say they are. They're not their sexuality just because they don't understand asexuality, I'm saying this to you now. So, and this particular person was autistic as well. And I know some people do take advantage of people who are autistic and try and manipulate their mind very easily. Not every person who's autistic has their mind manipulated, by the way, but I do know that some people who are autistic and got other mental health difficulties, special needs, they can have people trying to manipulate their mind very easily. So you have to be aware that some people don't actually want to be asexual. It causes them a lot of agony, and other people, are denying themselves that they really are asexual, and other people are trying to convince some people that they're not asexual when they are. Similarly, I did tell him, this guy, that there are some people who come into the asexual community who aren't really asexual. And I was horrified to find out that in the past I'd had a paedophile in my asexual meetups, unbeknown to me. He conned me, and he conned two guy friends who were teachers of children for years. And it was one of them that alerted me to who he really was. And they showed me his real name and the fact he was in a paper and he'd been to prison for it. And he was a respected counsellor before, and he was covering the whole thing up, pretending he's asexual when he's not. And he's still doing that now, as far as I know. It's disgusting. Really is disgusting. He's definitely not asexual. I saw in the newspaper with his photograph and all about him and what he said to young girls and tried to get them to do to him. It's sick, quite frankly. So there are some people that come into the asexual community that aren't really asexual. They're liars, and that is disgusting. Unfortunately, you're going to get everywhere, people get people that are not good and that are not honest and trustworthy. So I told this guy that, I've had someone come in like that, that, in the past, and like really upset me at the time. It took me a while to get over that, because people are entrusting me to bring good people into the meetups. I didn't know that, but he didn't just have me fooled. He fooled two adult guys who were teachers teaching children for over 5 years, I think it was. So, you know what I mean? I wasn't to know, you know what I mean? He falsified his name and everything, and made out that he's not interested in sex. And they knew that he was saying he was asexual. So it's all over his profile. So you've got to be really, really careful and use your judgment about what you think is the truth with a person, And so this guy then went on to ask me about children, like, do asexuals have children naturally? And I said, some have kids naturally, some have adoption, some have artificial insemination, and other asexuals don't want kids at all, which is probably a larger population of asexuals don't want that. So he was like really interested in that. And so I told him that. So, I was talking to him really about asexuality, and I was telling him the truth. So in that like a brief talk with all those different sexuals about asexuality, I talked about asexuality should be part of sexual safety, to do with like NHS stuff, and it's really important. I talked about the fact of what asexuality is and what it personally means to me. I explained that I'm not interested in any type of sex whatsoever. And I had to spell that out because the person was not having any of it. They're like, well, what does sex mean? What do you mean by not sex? I said, no sex. No penetrative sex, no anal sex, no oral sex, not to be touched, none of that. But I did say to someone else, I said, asexual, I said, explain that asexuals are all different. Some asexuals don't mind having naked cuddles. Some asexuals don't mind nudity. Some asexuals don't mind some touching. Every asexual is different, And that's what I was trying to explain. Every asexual is different. And, there's a lot of stereotypes about asexuals and asexuality that just isn't true. Some asexuals, I explain, are sex neutral. Some are sex positive, right? I'm just not interested in it. They said, oh, so you've never had sex. That was, I think the girl said that to me. I said, well, yeah, I'm an asexual who has had sex in the past before I realized I'm asexual. And I was having it because I thought I had to have it to have a relationship, because that's what society tells you and conditions you to believe, basically. So I am, but I haven't had it for years. And I'm really happy that I'm asexual, but not everyone is happy that they're asexual. I am really happy. I said this to the guy, the one that was asking me about children, and not every asexual is happy about being asexual, but I am happy about being asexual. And so it's very important to understand that not every asexual person wants to be asexual. Some feel really traumatized and upset that they'll never be the same as other people. Other asexuals are like neutral. They're like, like, I'm asexual. Other asexuals are happy that they've come to the realization that they are asexual and they feel liberated and free. Other asexuals just are quiet about it. Other asexuals like me are loud about it. Some asexuals have sex, some don't. Everyone is different. Every asexual is different. But I did say to this guy, asexuality is a lack of sexual attraction. It's not a lack of action. So some asexuals do have sex despite not being sexually attracted to their partner. He said, I think I get that. I think I can understand that. Because they don't have to be sexually attracted to them to actually have the act of sex with them. That's the point, right? And I said to him, some asexuals are romantic, like I am, and some are non-romantic. And called aromantic asexuals, or aromantic, as most people pronounce it. And you can get aromantic heterosexuals, for example, as well. Those who lack romantic attraction, but they still experience sexual attraction. So you can get aromantic sexuals and aromantic asexuals. So he was quite fascinated, which was good. And so I found it really interesting and good that the conversation went this way and I was able to express all of this. I ended up splitting off into a smaller group later on with 3 other people. And we went to the Boom Bar, which I've never been to, but I've always wanted to go there. And we had a drink. It's where people do virtual reality gaming, but there's also a bar up there that you can sit at and, sit tables and chairs in front of the bar, have a drink. It's very expensive though, the drinks in there. I did go in there. Really nice though, because it's got a live DJ. But it's a shame there hasn't people actually dancing there, because they could move a few tables and have it as a dance floor as well as people doing the gaming around it. But no, they don't have that. Anyway, it was nice pineapple juice I had. I could have probably got it for 75p in a carton from a supermarket or something, but it was still nice to be in there, have a live DJ, have the nice atmosphere for a little while. And anyway, after that, we went to see what it was like in the shipping, because some people went there from before. And I walked in there, and this guy started talking to me, who looked Indian, actually. I like Indian guys, but he immediately started talking to me. He was a bit drunk, so he was putting his chin like on my shoulder a bit. But as I love Indian guys so much, I did quite like it. He had a beard though, which is a shame, because he would have been more attractive without it. But because I have have a lot of attraction for Indian guys, I could tell he's Indian. It was nice that he was speaking to me. He's going, are you singing? Because it was a karaoke that we're doing. And I'm like, no. I said, I'm not good at singing. He goes, I bet you are good at singing. I said, I don't think I'm good at singing. And then I said, oh, are you from the uni then? Like, are you studying? He goes, oh, that's nice of you to say. I think it's because usually most uni students are young, and he was probably a bit older than that. And he's like, no, I do work at the uni though. I said, oh, what do you do? Like, do you teach? And he's like, no, I work in the admin department. I'm like, oh, all right. And so then I said, well, I said, oh, do you sing? He's going, yeah. I said, well, why don't you go and sing then? He's like, I've already sung a song. I said, what did you sing? And he said I sung Shaggy. Well, Shaggy is all about sex, And so anyway, Shaggy has done different songs, but it's kind of like based on sex, and the name Shaggy for the artist, based on kind of like shag is the slang for sex. So anyway, I got talking to him just briefly, and I said that he goes, well, what do you do? And I said, I'm an author and YouTuber. He's going, wow, you're an author. I said, yeah. And I study with a company called Blue Talks. I think I might have said about public speaking. I'm not sure if I said that to him or not, but I definitely said about being an author. And then he said, oh, what? I'm YouTube. He's like, oh, that's great. What books do you write? So I said, I specialize in writing books about asexuality. That's what I'm well known for. And I explained, and he's like, oh, I said, asexual is a sexual orientation that's based on the lack of sexual attraction. I don't have sexual attraction for anyone. And he's like, oh, so you don't like sex at all then? And I'm like, no. And then this guy, I think, was with him, or certainly was behind him, goes, I don't have sex with dolphins. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then the people that I went from the meetup there, they said, oh, do you want shall we go somewhere else? And I just said, yeah, because I thought there's no point in staying around with that guy because I'm not interested in sex at all. So if he was interested in a relationship or whatever with me, what's the point in hanging around? I bet, I've just said I'm not interested in sexual intercourse at all, And then I went off, and then I think it was Neil who's in our group. I think he's got my book. He was saying afterwards, like, so would you not be with a sexual person then? I think that's what he's trying to ask me. Like, would they have to be asexual? I said, no, they don't have to be asexual, but if they're a sexual person, they'd have to be able to live without sex, because I don't want it. And I don't want a polyamorous relationship. I want a monogamous relationship, because I'm monogamous and I deserve that, So most sexual guys can't live without sex. There's a few people that can, but it's quite rare. I said, so he goes, oh, and what? You just walked up and told him you're asexual? You tell him straight away? I said, well, yeah, he was asking what books I write. So I told him that I'm asexual and what that meant. I'm not interested in sex. I said, there's no point in wasting each other's time. If he doesn't like me for who I am, without the sex, then he's not the right guy for me. And it's no point in wasting each other's time. It's just a waste of time. So anyway, I said, I don't need a relationship anyway. I don't need to be in a relationship. I'm happy staying single, even if that's forever. I said, because I get to go in clubs and kiss hot young foreign guys pretty much whenever I want, providing they want that and like approach me to do that. So it's a good life for me anyway. You know what I mean? And I don't have to have any of the hassle of a relationship. I could just kiss who I want when I want. So, it's a good life, really, the single life. So, yeah, that was very interesting as well. But, I did have some attraction for this guy in the pub. And part of me is like, oh, but I think, why don't you just shave your beard off, mate? And he was drunk, he was slurring his words a bit, and I don't drink alcohol, so that put me off him a bit. But there's no point in staying there, because clearly he's a very sexual guy if he's singing Shaggy. But I said to him, oh, do you come in here, do you live in Exeter? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you come in here a lot? He goes, oh, yeah, I'm quite well known here. And I said, oh, I thought you might be if you're singing a karaoke song. So he's clearly an Indian guy that goes in there quite a lot. So I might see him in the future. Who knows? But anyway, I told him I don't like sex now, so he probably won't bother with me. But it's very interesting that the only guy in the room immediately started talking to me and chatting me up was him, who's Indian, right? As far as I know, he looks damn Indian anyway. I would say he's Indian, yeah. So that was very interesting. And the guy behind me who said, oh, I don't have sex with dolphins. It's like when we came out, me and the three people, and Neil said, some people really don't understand asexuality. When the guy said, oh, I don't have sex with dolphins. So I'm like, yeah, exactly. But anyway, it was good that I educated and answered all those questions about asexuality. So if you've got any questions about asexuality that you want me to do videos about in the future and answer, please pop them down in the comments below. Whatever your questions is, post them down below. Keep them polite though, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you never ever miss an episode. Grab a copy of Asexual Perspectives book, my best-selling book, to learn more about asexuality and all about love, life and sex from an asexual point of view. I'll see you soon in the next video live stream. Lots of love. Share this video with anyone you think may benefit from it. Bye bye.